All right, everyone. Welcome to the Just Sayin Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sutton Smith, joined by
Jake Osteen, of course.
yeah. Both of us have been really good friends for a long time. Both of us are from Harris County, Georgia, where we went to high school. This show is just going to be called Just Saying. We're going to talk about college football. We're going to have a special emphasis on the SEC, but we will get around nationally to all the college football big stories and big games of the week. Talk a little bit about our teams. I'm a student at the University of Alabama. Jake's a student at the University of Georgia. So things can be heated on this show sometimes. You know, we're going to get pretty emotional and when we're talking about our teams, especially if Georgia and Alabama find themselves in the SEC title this year. You know, we'll
the natty. Or the natty.
Yeah, it could happen again. You know, we expect to on this show to talk about the SEC more than any other conference, just because it is, you know, the best conference in college football. I would say the most competitive generally, but this year it's not. And this year actually on this show, we're going to talk about who the most competitive conference is. Also on the show, we'll be talking a little bit about the SEC tier list, conference winners and runner-ups, and other sleeper teams. But we're going to start in God's country over here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where I currently am. And we're going to talk about a little bit about this quarterback competition that's got everybody up their panties in a wad. So, you know, we'll start there. Obviously, the three candidates, Jalen Milroe, the redshirt sophomore coming back, played a couple of games last year for Alabama. So we've seen him, kind of know what he is. We've got Ty Simpson, the redshirt freshman, and then also the transfer from Notre Dame, Tyler Buckner.
You leaving Dylan Lonergan out?
Yeah, you know, Dylan Lonergan, a lot of promise from the young kid, but just don't think he's ready this early to compete, especially in the SEC. But you know, I think I'm more of a Jalen Milroe type of guy, and I wouldn't say I'm a guy like a fan of one particular guy. I want whoever Alabama trots out there. Obviously, I want to succeed, but I think Jalen Milroe is the guy that will do that. What are your thoughts, Jake? How do you think?
I mean, I don't know who they're going to trot out there, but I think they're all bad options. They're not. I mean, they're not awful, but you don't have one that you can look at and say, "Oh, he's a top 5 QB in the SEC."
No, I understand that, and you kind of echo the sentiments of, I would say, 80 to 85% of the Alabama fan base who they are not confident in the who's going to be the quarterback this year, and are not confident that we're going to be able to compete at a high level with the Georgia and LSU the way they were last year. And, you know, LSU returning a ton of talent this year. But my thing is, you can never count out Nick Saban. I mean, he's got the resume. He's been there. He's done that. This season really reminds me of 2015. So Alabama goes into 2015 with two quarterback competition. Everybody remembers Jake Coker ended up winning the Heisman, or not the Heisman, excuse me, winning the national championship that year. Transfer out of Florida State.
And is this when they were ranked preseason number 5?
No. That was the last time we were ranked preseason number 5 was 2009, heading into the 2009 season where we won the national title. We had been ranked above three or higher every year since then. This year we're coming in at number 4 in the AP rankings, but nobody really remembers from that 2015 season Cooper Bateman. I sadly do remember Cooper Bateman. He started game 3 for Alabama against Ole Miss. He played one quarter, and Ole Miss went up 21-0 in the first quarter over Alabama at home. I was at that game. That's the only game I've ever been to that Alabama's lost.
That's privilege. That's privilege.
This college football season really reminds me of that season in particular, because this quarterback competition, I think, will go into the season. Sure, there'll probably be a quarterback starter announced for the Middle Tennessee State game, but that competition won't end out because really Middle Tennessee State is not going to give Alabama much trouble, I don't think. Now, they did they beat Miami last year at home.
I think they could throw you out there at QB and they'd be fine.
Yeah, I'd have to get back on my handoff skills, but I don't think I'd throw a single pass in that game.
All you got to do is hand the ball off to Jace McClellan and whoever.
Oh yeah. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. The big test everyone circles is week 2 in Tuscaloosa against Texas. And even Texas, their defense, I would say, is maybe above average this year. It's just, how are you going to trade points with that Texas offense? And Alabama's defense, we know, hasn't been what it has. It hasn't lived up to the standard in the last 3 or 4 years. Personally, I think that's starting to change a little bit, and they're going to get a little bit better this year with Kevin Steele back in there at defensive coordinator. I think we've got the athletes for it. It's just all about putting it together. But I think that game is really going to decide who the starting quarterback is for the rest of the season.
Who's the safety opposite of Downs for y'all? Is that the UAB transfer?
No, so Jalen Key is the UAB transfer. It sounded like he's going to play more money this year. They didn't want to they didn't want to put because he didn't come in until the summer. They didn't want to put the whole playbook on him, from the summer on to now. So I think they're working mainly with him just at money. Money is the dime position. So
the one who's probably going to start is Devontae Smith.
Devontae Smith, not the one that Georgia fans remember. And Georgia fans remember the other Devontae Smith well, as do Ohio State fans. This Devontae Smith was a 3-star corner safety commit out of the state of Ohio that Alabama grabbed 3 years ago. He's kind of been just a reserve guy his first 2 years, but this year he's got a lot of praise from Saban in a press conference. When Saban rarely calls players out, especially by name. Usually he'll say a number, but when he said his name, when he says a name of somebody, that means that they've made strides and they've really earned that. So I think it will be Devontae Smith. He's a very versatile guy. He'll play opposite of Caleb Downs. But
so speaking of the defense and the quarterback battle, what were some of the takeaways you've learned from the scrimmage? Because I've heard so many different things. I've heard Jalen Milroe look good. I've heard he sucked. I've heard Ty Simpson looked decent. I've heard he didn't look good at all. And the freshman, what's his name, Lonergan? Yeah. I heard he looked pretty good. So,
well, what have you have to think of, especially as you're not as familiar, Jake, because you're obviously not an Alabama fan, and your quarterback battle is more of a Carson Beck versus the world kind of. I mean, we all kind of know Carson Beck's going to be the quarterback there. It's not really a battle. They're saying that just to promote competition. Alabama truly is a competition, and fans have their horse that they want to win the battle. Obviously, so when you're listening to sources, you have to take that kind of everything they say with a grain of salt, because they all have a horse in the battle and they're going to pull for the guy they want to play. So you've got guys out there that are saying, well, Jalen Milroe had a great scrimmage. Ty Simpson was terrible. And then you have literally the next thread on the message board saying Ty Simpson was a much better quarterback than Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe threw 5 interceptions. It was also a close scrimmage. So players, families were really the only people there. No media there. But I do have a source on one of the message boards that I trust. And that source said that of the guys in the competition, Milroe had the best day. I think he had an 80-yard touchdown pass to Ja'Cory Brooks, a 70-yard bomb to former Bulldog Jermaine Burton, looking to probably be a starter this year for Alabama. But in all, supposedly the freshman from Georgia, Lonergan, looked the best of any quarterback. I mean, however, he is going against the threes, so that it would make sense that he looked the best. He's playing with the threes, but going against the threes.
I mean, I will say, I don't know if you've paid attention to the NFL preseason with all the quarterbacks, but whether it's Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, all of them look terrible. Bryce Young, he went like 2 for 4 or 2 for 6 with 21 yards, so not much to show. But our guy, Stetson Bennett, went 17 for 29, 190 yards with a touchdown, no interceptions. But I mean, like you said, it's preseason, so I think a lot of people are putting stock into that. But I mean, he went and showed out he can do what he did in college against NFL guys. I know kind of like Dylan Lonergan, he was going against the threes. Stetson was going up against NFL backups, but kind of impressive.
I don't want to compare Dylan Lonergan to Stetson Bennett. I mean, Stetson Bennett's a 2-time national champ. Definitely different.
Heisman finalist.
Definitely different stories of how their career is probably going to end up. I mean, Stetson from a walk-on, Dylan Lonergan's not a walk-on, but yeah. And it also, another thing that I look at, especially in scrimmages, is, and especially with Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, the way they run scrimmages, it's not an actual scrimmage. There's situational plays and stuff that they'll get into. So you can't just look at a stat sheet and determine how a guy did. Yeah. And especially this year with Alabama, and I've heard it's kind of been a problem with Georgia as well, with receivers dropping the ball. So So, for instance, I saw a stat sheet that said Ty Simpson was 13 of 16 with like 2 interceptions. But, you never know how those interceptions were thrown. Were they actual thrown right to the guy where the guy just caught it and took off with it? Or was it a drop pass, maybe blocked at the line of scrimmage? You never know. You can't just look at stat sheets. And that's another thing with college football. You got to watch the tape. And we don't have the tape. So we don't really know exactly how they threw the touchdowns, how they threw the interceptions, what the look they were getting on offense was. So everything you have to take is a grain of salt.
I mean, because I will say you hear a lot from some of these camps. I know Texas, someone had a 70-yard touchdown. I know in ours, Oscar Delp had a 50-yard touchdown. You just said Jacory Brooks had an 80-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just say that, but it really would have been like a 30-yard gain. DB stopped trying, and they just keep on running. Like I know last year, Mekhi Muse had, I want to say like an 80-yard punt return touchdown, but in all honesty, since we weren't playing contact, he would have probably been taken down after about 10 yards.
And so then think about it like this too: how many missed tackles
really know
on the play?
Yeah.
How many missed tackles? Speaking from experience, I've seen Alabama miss a ton of tackles in the last 2 years. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was a few in there for on a whatever specific play they're running. But also the source that I trust that I was reading talked about the inconsistency from Ty Simpson and Tyler Buchner. He said that Ty Simpson he threw an interception, led guys a little bit too far, wasn't the greatest passing, and that Buchner actually threw a pick six to Tresman Marshall, another former Bulldog, that went right into his hands, and he took off for the end zone and scored.
Oh, Tresman scored the pick six.
Yeah, Tresman Marshall had a pick six.
Good for him. Good for him.
So, but then the last thing I want to mention before we get off the whole quarterbacks is just the X's and O's of what Jalen Milroe brings that the other two don't bring. So let me ask you a question, Jake, and this is all football, how the defense is going to play the offense in a game.
Yeah.
So just think about this. Jalen Milroe is lining up in the shotgun, Jace McClellan next to him. How is the defense going to react when they see possibly a double running back tandem, one playing quarterback, one playing running back in the shotgun? What is reactionary for them?
I mean, that's fair, because in the scrimmage you can't really play like that because the quarterback's non-contact.
Well, exactly. So in a game, X's and O's, what is the weak side linebacker going to be doing in a game?
He's reading the QB.
He's spying on the quarterback, right?
Yeah, typically when you have, I don't know how great of an athlete Ty Simpson is. Tyler Buchner's okay from what I know. But either way, they don't run the ball like Jalen Milroe. And so if you have those two quarterbacks back there, 85% of the time they're handing it off. And so a lot of time the weak side defender is just going to key on the running back, tackle him from behind. Whereas, what's his name? Jalen Milroe, I don't want to give a percentage, but if he sees that guy crash, he's going to go for 60, 70 yards.
And so I want all the listeners to think, who is the best, and just take passing out of the equation. Who are maybe your top 3 quarterbacks in college football in just running ball? Because I've got 3 that I think are really good at that, and all 3 of them I would also say are so in passing.
Let me give you my list. Caleb Williams has to be up there.
Okay. Just wait to hear my list. Just wait to hear my list.
He might not be the best run. He might not be the best runner, but he's so elusive in the pocket, and it adds to his mobility. And so, kind of like Anthony Richardson and Jalen Milroe, neither one of them are that elusive in the pocket, but they can break tackles and they can run like no one else can.
Yeah.
But Bryce Young, even though he's not the fastest runner, he's not the most athletic. That dude was so elusive and just did not take sacks. So I'm going based on that kind of a little bit. So I'm going Caleb Williams. I haven't thought about this, but I'm going Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels from LSU.
It's a good one.
And probably Jalen Daniels from Kansas. Isn't that his name?
Yeah, that's actually a good list. And honestly, I didn't even think of Jalen Daniels, but I'll go ahead and just give you my top 3. And you're probably going to disagree with at least one of them.
We'll see.
These are just guys that I thought last year that are still in college football that I thought did an exceptional job at their respective programs. One's actually a transfer. So I would say number 3 for me is Jeff Sims, quarterback now at Nebraska. Transfer from Georgia Tech. Dude's an elusive runner. super fast. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Lamar, the way he runs. Just
Yeah.
um,
I can't really
Lamar.
I can't speak to him too much because I only saw him play Georgia when he can't do anything against our defense. So
Yeah. Another guy that played against Georgia that did absolutely nothing against their defense. That's Robbie Ashford. I think Robbie Ashford.
Okay, I'm with you.
Robbie Ashford is a great runner. Cannot
But
throw the
that
ball
dude,
to save his life,
he
but
cannot.
he's a great runner. And then I'd say number one is Jalen Milroe, because I think Jalen Milroe is, if not the fastest quarterback in college football, he can also run you over. We saw him do that his freshman year. Last year, he didn't really do that because I think the coaches was like, "Hey, dude, if you go down, we have nothing behind you, so you need to protect yourself a little bit." I think we'll get back to seeing him lower in the shoulder this year, and
Yeah.
the dude, I don't know if you've seen him, he's massive. So
give me Jalen Milroe at number one. I forgot about him, but let me give you a sleeper.
you forgot about it. But we're talking about it.
I know. Let me give you a sleeper. Bo Nix.
Yeah, Bo
Nix. He's a little shifty.
Yeah.
He's good.
KJ Jefferson.
But I mean,
KJ Jefferson will run you over. I mean,
oh yeah,
he's not the fastest guy, but I mean, great. There's a lot of really good running quarterbacks in
the way the game's going now.
Yeah, it's very fun to watch. I wouldn't say
Jordan Travis is another one of those guys.
But back to what we were saying with the whole spying a quarterback like Milroe. So when you're spying a guy, let's say Milroe decides to hand the ball off to McClellan in that situation, and you have a weak side linebacker spying him. He can kind of hold on and shuffle and then hand the ball off, and he can go. And that weak side linebacker is taken out of the play because he's just sitting there. Let's say it's an inside zone to the left and he's on the right. He's just sitting there watching Milroe if he's going to pull the ball. So it's then from then on, it's a 10-on-10 rather than 10-on-11. And yes, it doesn't sound like one defender is that big of a deal, but in a college football game, that one defender can be the reason that McClellan doesn't break a 70-yard touchdown run.
It can be the difference between it can be the difference between 70 and -2.
Exactly. And depending on who that player is, it could be a star player. Like if Alabama's playing Georgia, it could be one of y'all's middle linebackers that's being taken out of a play, which could end up being huge. So not only does he bring that, then also his own running game where he can make it himself and take it to that side. As long as he beats that will linebacker and beats him, he's who knows how far Jalen Milroe can run. We saw that in the Arkansas game and the A&M game. But also, how are teams going to play Alabama to start, especially Texas, because Jalen Milroe obviously is a very unproven passer. As most college quarterbacks, they can hit the short passes. When I say short, 10 to the line of scrimmage, he can hit those. Where he gets a little shaky, where he gets really shaky, is 10 and beyond. Now, I've seen him in the scrimmage game. I've heard about him in scrimmages. Obviously, he hit Jermaine Burton up for a 70-yarder. He has the potential on deep passes. Now, is Jalen Milroe a guy that I want taking 3 progressions in a game, making many checks at the line of scrimmage? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He's not going to be Bryce Young. So
let me tell you what. If I'm Texas, what I'm doing week 2 doesn't matter if Jalen Milroe's back there. It doesn't matter if Buckner or Simpson is. What I'm doing is I'm stacking the box, putting 8 up there because y'all have an elite offensive line with really good running back talent. Wide receivers are unproven, tight ends are unproven, especially QB unproven. So what I'm doing, stacking the box, putting 7 to 8 in there every play. Depends on where you line up your tight ends. But making Jalen Milroe or your QB beat me. That's all I'm doing the whole entire game.
Yep. But also what you'll see when you have the weak side linebacker guarding the quarterback, you'll see those safeties start to creep up. They won't play so far back. They'll creep up closer to the line almost as other linebackers. That's when Alabama's going to have to take advantage of the deep ball. So who do I think can throw the best deep ball on the team? Probably Ty Simpson. But are those safeties going to creep up as far if Ty Simpson's playing quarterback rather than Jalen Milroe playing quarterback? Probably not, because that's what Ty Simpson's known for, his passing ability. Jalen Milroe is not known for that. So early on, this quarterback competition is going to really be figured out based on, can Jalen Milroe throw a deep pass? Didn't see it much last year. We've seen it a little bit in spring ball this year. We've seen it a little bit in fall camp. But that Texas game, I expect play action deep ball shots to really happen in the first half. And if they don't fall and Alabama's trailing at halftime, it's not going to be a good sight for Alabama fans, and myself included in Tuscaloosa.
Hey, myself included too. I'll be there for that game.
Yeah.
Not at the game, but I'll be in T-Town.
Yeah, and you don't want a bunch of depressed Alabama fans to hang out with after the game. So
No, I do not.
but let's finally get off this quarterback competition. I know myself included and all Alabama fans are sick and tired of talking about it. I just can't wait till we get to week 1 where it can be proven out on the field. But another huge development just for our offensive line, Caden Proctor is now running with the ones at left tackle, the 5-star freshman. Looks like he's kind of beaten out Elijah Pritchett, who struggled with a little bit of injuries this fall. So unfortunate for Pritchett. Pritchett, who's actually from Columbus, Georgia, went to Carver High School, former 4-star. And then it looks like Terrence Ferguson is getting the start at left guard. The coaches have talked about how great Proctor and Ferguson are in run blocking, which is exactly what this team is needing. They need to get better pass pro, obviously. So this entire offensive line is probably one of the best ones we've had, probably since 2020. All really good run blockers. Right side, good pass blockers with Booker and J.C. Latham. We've got a proven center, Seth McLaughlin. So if we can get these guys on the left side to advance their skills a little bit in pass block, I think this offensive line should be fine. Really something getting back to the old Alabama roots there.
They're going to be more than fine.
Yeah.
They're going to be a top 3 line in my mind by the end of the season.
I wouldn't say, and that's obviously barring injuries. We can't predict that, but
yeah, of course,
there's some really good offensive lines in the Big Ten. I'm sure we'll get to talk about that a little bit later. Michigan and Penn State in particular, both of those offensive lines are stacked. But in this scrimmage, drops remained an issue with Alabama receivers. I don't think we should technically look into that too much, just because you've got 3 different quarterbacks running with the first team. Ball comes out of their hands different. Yes, should these guys catch the balls? Yes, but when the lights turn on, I feel like this won't be as big as a problem as we all think it will be. Kind of shift over to tight ends. The tight ends have looked stellar this entire fall, all spring. This is being talked about as the best tight end room that Nick Saban has probably ever had at Alabama. We've got 3 guys that will contribute as first teamers. We really only ever had 1 guy. This year we've got 3. We've got Amari Niblack, Danny Lewis Jr., and C.J. Dupree, all 3 guys that have been spoken highly of by Coach Saban. So really looking forward to seeing those guys take the field. Kind of shift over to defense here a little bit, some more fall camp intel. Coach Saban believes we've got 5-6 guys that can play on the D-line, play winning football. That includes Tim Smith, James Smith, the freshman, 5-star freshman, the 5th-year Justin Boybe, big man up the middle of the nose guard, Jaheim Otis, Damon Payne, and then Jamarian Latham. Those 6 guys are the guys I think Alabama will probably rotate in a lot to start the year, while the other guys are getting kind of caught up on their technique and the playbook and all that. But another defensive line that's very solid defensive line, a little bit better than they were last year. I wouldn't say they're the best that Saban's had or even close to that, obviously, but a very solid defensive line and a top defensive line in the SEC. At inside linebacker, no surprise, Jahad Campbell running alongside Deontay Lawson. He's definitely kind of locked that spot up, a spot that I was very I was high on Trezman Marshall. I thought Trezman Marshall would take that spot, especially with him coming from Georgia as a transfer. But Jahad Campbell seems to have locked that weak side down. He's a guy that can play outside and inside, so I'm excited to watch him play.
I've seen him play for 3 years, and he's not bad. He's not bad at all. He got meaningful snaps last year, but he was buried in the depth chart here. So this year he was looking at being probably linebacker number 5. And so there's a reason he transferred out. And yeah, he went to Alabama, another big school, great school with, a lot of inside linebackers. But to me, it doesn't make sense to go somewhere where you're not going to start. So I'm interested to see where not necessarily if he's starting, but is he getting meaningful snaps by Texas? Obviously, MTSU, that doesn't really count. But is he going to get meaningful snaps against Texas?
And I will come back to Trez Marshall in a second, and I was going to get your opinion on something regarding him. But let's go ahead and shift to the secondary, and we'll get back to Trezman. So this has been reportedly the best secondary since Alabama's had since 2017, the Minka Fitzpatrick days. Terrion Arnold continues to impress. Some saying he was the best player at the scrimmage the other day.
Wow.
Coach Saban's talked so much about how he's got the most talent of anybody in that defensive back room. Said that last year with guys like Kool-Aid there, Elias Ricks. Elias Ricks, I know wasn't a very high draft pick, but a lot of people thought he had great potential. Had an interception, pick 6 the other night on the Eagles.
Had a great debut, even outside of that. He was locked down.
So Terry and Arnold, I mean, looking to really impress this year. He's definitely gonna have to be a guy that steps up because Kool-Aid's pretty much on an island this year. Not many teams are gonna want to throw the ball his way. Malachi Moore, the senior safety, very versatile guy, can play star and safety. Don't really know where he's going to fit in yet, if he'll be beside Caleb Downs or not. I personally think he'll go back and play star, and they'll let Devontae Smith play that safety spot next to Caleb Downs. And speaking of Caleb Downs, most insiders are already referring him as the best player on the team. Now, that is insane because he's a true freshman, five-star guy. His second practice at Alabama, he was starting with the ones over guys like Christian Story, who's been in the program for 4 years, over guys like Devontae Smith, who's been here. This is his third year. His second practice, he was with the ones. That doesn't happen often. Yeah, and that doesn't happen often. So that just shows you how much of a player he really is and how versatile he is. I mean, he's the backup punt returner as well behind Kool-Aid. So
I will say this though. No surprise he was the starting safety by day 2.
Yeah.
But y'all don't look great back there at safety. I don't know. Starters aside, let's talk about depth. You mentioned Christian Story. Who's the guy that had an interception in the spring game? He might have been a corner, actually. It was a diving interception at the.
That's Earl. Yeah, that's Earl Little. He's the
Earl Little.
He's the.
So y'all have guys back there. I mean, they're playing for Alabama, so they're not bad. But y'all don't. In my mind, y'all don't have the depth that y'all used to. If Caleb Downs goes down with an injury, if Devontae Smith goes down with an injury, I'm not so sure how much they can be replaced.
Well, I think it's more of it's not who's behind them, but it's where do you shuffle? Because we do have so many guys that are interchangeable in the secondary. It's like Terry and Arnold, for instance, has gotten reps practicing safety. He's actually a true safety, played safety in high school. So that leads me to believe, I wonder, let's say just for an example, Caleb Downs goes down with an injury. Could Terry and Arnold go back and play safety? Probably. Could he play at the rate Caleb Downs was playing? No. But we've also got talent behind these guys. I mean, we've got a lot of young, inexperienced talent. We've got the transfer from Louisiana Lafayette, Trey Amos. A lot of great things to be said about him. He's a backup outside corner, probably going to be your third corner behind Terry and Arnold. I would be very confident for him to be a starter. We were just talking about Malachi Moore, how he can play both safety and star. If one of the safeties got hurt, you just swap him from star to safety, and then you insert Earl Little, who had that very nice interception in the spring game. Totally confident in Earl Little's skills. So I don't think it's necessarily depth for just this year. Yes, depth will be an issue in 2024, 2025, years beyond. But this year, I think we have such a versatile secondary. It's just how you shuffle and stack those players in different positions. And the last piece of intel, the most important piece of intel to Alabama fans, field goal kicking. Will Reichard was 3 for 3 yesterday with 2 55-yarders and a 60-yarder. So that's good to hear. It's coming back to his 5th year. Hopefully looking to get drafted. Probably not the Roberto Aguayo draftee, but hopefully.
I will say this just to knock down the Alabama's field goal kickers' egos a little bit. Field goals in spring scrimmages are not live. And so it's basically just practice. There are guys out there, but they're not trying to block the kick.
Right.
Potentially by the last scrimmage, they might be. But I mean, like I said, what probably happened is, I mean, Kirby spoke to it in his presser, and I assume Nick Saban did too. Sometimes you set these situations up like it's all scripted by the coach. And so what might have happened is Alabama scored a touchdown, maybe on that 80-yarder. Ja'Cory Brooks scored that 80-yard touchdown. And then they take it back to the logo for Will Reichard to try a kick. And like I said, it's not really live. There are guys out there, but I mean, it's still impressive. He hit a 60-yarder.
Oh yeah.
Things might be looking up for him because last year it wasn't the best year.
Yeah, and we talk about 2020, the COVID year. He was perfect during the regular season in field goals. I think throughout the whole year. 2019, his freshman year, he was banged up a lot. And 2021, we will take Will Reichard over what we've had in years past. I mean, obviously, Alabama has been so bad at kicker position.
You should.
My entire life, I have every single time we've tried out for a field goal, I don't even watch because I still have problems watching Will Reichard just because I've got what's happened, the Joseph Bulovises, the Adam Griffiths, the Cade Foster, the Jeremy Shelley. I have all that in the
I
back.
don't even know these people.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm telling you. They're a bunch of nobodies that we've. Andy Papanastis. I mean, that's probably the worst kicker I've ever seen. Oh, you should know who Andy Papanastis is. He missed the field goal as regulation expired in the 2017 national championship game against Georgia.
Okay, that was him. Yeah,
The
I know.
the 25-yard field goal right down the middle that he hooked
That
right.
the game was already over with. I had stopped watching. My parents told me he missed it. I was like, no way, no way.
Oh, yes way. Every Alabama fans, when we saw that short guy go out there, we were like, yep, he's definitely missing this wide right. And that's exactly what he did. Just like Ohio State last year when the Ohio State kicker tried on the field.
Hey, no,
I knew there was no way he was going to make that kick. There was no way he was making that kick.
Well, yeah, those aren't the same at all. You explained it was a 25-yarder down the middle. This one was a 51-yarder on the left hash. He had never made anything longer than 48. So I hate to see people say he should have made it because this dude has never kicked a field goal that long in a game. I mean, granted, he's probably kicked it in practice, but the game is on the line. The clock is striking New Year's. There was so much pressure on that kick. And one, he's already never made something like that before. And especially when you have Darius Smith, number 19, back there, who looks like he's 7'5", jumping up. It looked like he would have blocked it if it was down the middle. Ultimately, he shanked it, but
yeah, it was. I think what did it for every person in college football is that it was just completely nowhere near the goal. And if it was close, okay, maybe we would have people would have gotten him. The fact that he was. Not only did he not have the distance, but he was probably 40 yards away from the field goal post itself. That just kind of sent the message that there's no way this was going to happen. But before we transfer over to the Georgia scrimmage and whatever you wanted to talk about involving Georgia's depth, I wanted to get your thoughts on Trez Marshall. When Alabama brought him in, myself included and many other of my Alabama friends that I have here that are sports media majors, very puzzled by bringing him in, mainly because I thought we had plenty of talent in the room. We didn't really need to add another guy. Alabama was already at 87 scholarships. For those that don't know, you have to be down to 85 at the end of fall camp. Currently, Alabama still sits with 87, so don't exactly know what's going to happen with those last two spots. Who's gonna get the boot per se, but when Nick Saban takes transfers, he always talks about these guys are going to be immediate contributors. And so far, Trez Marshall, during spring, he started off as a starting linebacker alongside Deontay Lawson in the spring game. Jahad Campbell, the man who's starting right now, actually was running with the twos alongside another transfer, Justin Jefferson, who's now running with the threes. And it seems that Campbell has jumped Trezman. I mean, obviously, Saban couldn't have predicted that was going to happen, but just from the beginning, I thought it was a very puzzling pickup for the Crimson Tide. But also, I thought the main reason at the time when we picked him up, we did not have a defensive coordinator, and who from the University of Georgia was being talked about as being the defensive coordinator for the Alabama Crimson Tide at that point in time? It was Glenn Schumann.
There was no shot he was going to Bama.
I never said that there was, but many Bama fans believed that there was a possibility.
I don't know why they believe that
Glenn Schumann, by getting Trez Marshall, who apparently from reports had a great relationship with Glenn Schumann, that was the first domino into getting Glenn Schumann. Obviously, we all know that didn't work out. So I wonder, obviously, I feel like Nick Saban got Trez Marshall for the reason we need this guy to play. He's going to be your third linebacker this year, more than likely at this point. But how much did let's see if we can get Glenn Schumann over to Alabama, did that have to do? I mean, I wonder, just from the Georgia perspective, it sounds like you were solid in Glenn Schumann staying the entire time.
Yeah, no, in my mind, I mean, I don't know. I wasn't confident Glenn Schumann was going to stay the entire time because that dude's a great coordinator. He's amazing. But I knew he wasn't going to Bama. For me, I think one of the best things about pretty much all of our coaches is they have great relationships with almost all the players. Unless it's on the player, they have great relationships with them. So, I mean, Glenn Schumann, if any of our linebackers would have left, they would have said the exact same thing. Oh, he has a great relationship with him. Is he going to come here? So, no, I just don't know why. One, I don't know why Bama fans thought that. But two, I'm very puzzled by it too. Because, I mean, I just learned the other day, because I saw the spring game and I saw he was running with the ones. I thought he was going to be your starting inside linebacker.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm still puzzled by the move. Maybe he thought he was going to go there, and then they saw him and they didn't like him as much. To me, it would have made more sense to go to somewhere like Auburn, because he's from Clinch County, Alabama. Or is that Clinch County, Georgia? I don't know which one it is, but would have made more sense to go to somewhere like Auburn, who doesn't have much depth, doesn't have a lot of talent, especially at the backer position. But I mean, I can speak to how he was here, where, I mean, like I said, got meaningful snaps, quality player, played in the Ohio State game, played in all our biggest games last year. But he was about to be buried on the depth chart, because I don't know if you're familiar with our linebacker recruiting. We just brought in 3 of the top 7 inside linebackers, one being the number 2 one in Raylan Wilson, who just got injured in our spring scrimmage, but doesn't look too serious. But even without those freshman linebackers, Tresman was probably going to be our number 5 behind JDJ, Smile, Xavier Sori, who's turned a lot of heads this spring, and Jalen Walker, who was a freshman last year, who's just a freak. He can play both outside and inside. So in my mind, it doesn't make much sense to bring him in, especially because, like you talked about, these transfers are supposed to be immediate impacts. Georgia does the exact same thing, where even if they don't impact on their side of the ball, they're going to impact special teams. And so you can look at it. There's only a few transfers in the past couple of years who haven't had that impact, one being Tyke Smith. But that was because, I mean, we brought him in. He was an All-American safety from West Virginia. But he's had 2 injuries, tore his ACL, and then I believe it was hyperextended his knee or something last year, held him out all year. And so this year he's going to make an impact. So to me, I'm still very puzzled by it. It doesn't make much sense to me as well.
Yeah. Now, I don't doubt Tresman is going to play a lot on special teams this year. Usually you want to have your best tacklers, guys who who don't play every down on defense. So I definitely think he'll factor in there. Another reason that I could possibly see Tresman coming and Saban wanting him is that, like you said, he's gotten meaningful snaps. He's been in some big situations, especially in the Ohio State game. He's been in college football now. I think this is his 4th year in college football. He's got another one after this year. So he's been there. He's been in the linebacker room. He's got experience. He's got a veteran probably presence. For a lot of the younger guys at Alabama, there's not many older guys with experience. I mean, the oldest linebacker we have is Kendrick Blackshear, who's a senior.
He's a huge one, right?
Yeah, he's never seen the field. Like he's a great special teams player, has been his entire career at Alabama, but just hasn't been able to get on the field at linebacker. Excuse me, he's a freak in nature. Just hasn't really worked out. But I could see that being another reason why they bring him on. And then, not to mention, 2024, he's got 1 more year of college football. Deontay Lawson most likely is going to be going to the NFL draft, probably a 1st or 2nd round pick. And there you go. Tresman Marshall could be a starter at Alabama next year. He got a little bit of competition, but I definitely could see it. So
yeah. So let's switch the gears over to Georgia, our reigning back-to-back national champions. I won't spend too much time on them, but
yeah, sorry for spending too much time on Alabama. Sorry, I get carried away.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. I hope that doesn't happen here. But we talked about the quarterback battle earlier a little bit. But I mean, like you said, it's one of those things. We're not going to announce a starter. We might not announce a starter. We might just trot Carson Beck out there because, I mean, like you said, everyone knows he's a starter. But there is a battle for that QB2. I don't know how much you've heard, but Gunnar Stockton's turning some heads. He was turning heads last year as a scout team QB, because I don't know if you're probably familiar with it, but for the viewers, the scout team QB, you're supposed to make every single throw. It doesn't matter if someone is absolutely blanketed, you throw it. And so these guys are going to have 10 interceptions every single day, especially because they're going against the number 1 defense in UGA. And so, I mean, Gunnar probably threw, I would imagine, probably 5 to 10 interceptions every single day with the scout team offense. But that dude can make some throws. So what I've heard is, in the scrimmage, Beck struggled a little bit, but once he got some momentum, he started performing pretty well. And so, I mean, I won't spend too much time on the quarterbacks because we know where that's going. But yeah. Brock Vander, if he's one of the heavy hitters, he's going to look for the big play. He's going to look for 60, 70 yards down the field. But what I've heard is he hasn't been as consistent as they want him to be. Whereas Gunnar Stockton is kind of the polar opposite of him, where he's kind of like the Jake Fromm, where he's not going to be amazing. He's not going to be this first round draft pick, but he's going to hold the ball and he's not going to really turn it over. So he's going to check it down when he sees it. So he's extremely consistent, but doesn't make the biggest plays. And so one of
like this too, especially for a team like Georgia, who's got all the athletes, you don't need someone who's going for the big play every time.
Not at all.
So that I'm sure any Georgia fan, or especially Kirby Smart, would love to have Jake Fromm back right this year. I mean, if you told me Jake Fromm is a quarterback of Georgia this year, I'd say it's going to be 3 years in a row, just because of. And I mean, Carson Beck. I mean, you never know. I got a chance to watch the spring game, and he looked fantastic. I would think maybe even a better passer than Stetson. Obviously not
more talented.
Not as good of a runner as Stetson. Stetson does not get enough praise for his running ability. Something I thought that was very undervalued that he had.
He had 10 rushing touchdowns last year.
Carson can move.
As many as Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Carson can move. I think he can. Probably not to what Stetson. They're not going to have design runs and things like that. But I think he could get out of the pocket if need be.
Kirby said in his presser he views these QBs very, very much similar. Where, like, you have Brock can run the best out of all of them. Gunnar can probably lower his shoulder better than everyone else, and Carson is thought to be more of the pocket passer. But all these QBs, I mean, like we talked about earlier, it's the way football is going, where all these QBs can move out of the pocket. They can throw on the run. They can run past a D lineman or a linebacker if they need to, unless it's a freak of nature. But that kind of leads into one of my areas of concerns. You mentioned how Carson's probably a better passer than Stetson. And in my mind, there's no doubt he's more talented. The area of concern I have the most is, will Carson make the throws that he needs to? When we need them, is he going to perform? And so you can look at the games in the past. You can look at the 2021 national championship against Bama. You can look at the 2022 game against Ohio State. Stetson didn't start off super hot. Like, again, in both of those games, he was not that great. But when they needed him, that dude could sling it and he could make any throw. So I remember it like yesterday, the last drive against Ohio State where he led us down the field, hit Kieris on a beautiful back shoulder throw. Kieris is one of the most clutch wide receivers in Georgia history, but then hit a AD Mitchell in the touchdown for an amazing touchdown throw. So it's when you need him, is Carson going to make those throws? Because Carson is very talented. I've told you he could be a first round pick, but is he going to make those throws? And so that's one of the areas of my concern. One of the areas that people think we're going to struggle in is running back. I mean, Kirby's talked about it too. To me, it's not much of a concern. I know we talked about it the other day. You might think it is, but with how great our O-line is, in my mind, we have the best O-line in the nation. I know people are going to say Michigan should be the Joe Moore Award, but we should have won it the past 2 years, and we're going to continue that for this year, I believe, because I mean, we got Ernest Green out there on the left side, who's great in run blocking. He has to get a little bit better in pass blocking, but I mean, he's just a redshirt freshman. I think he did something to his back last year, so he couldn't even practice. And so we got Xavier Truss, a returning starter, Cedric Van Peren, a returning starter who's going to be the number one center taken in the draft, Tate Ratledge, returning starter who might be the number one guard taken in the draft, and then Amarius Mims out there at right tackle, who was sitting behind two great tackles last year, one first rounder. And so we're going to see what he's going to do. But in my mind, again, he might be a first rounder this year. So we've had some running back injuries, but I'm not too worried about it. I think whether you give it to Dejon Edwards, Cash Jones, who I'm going to hit on in a little bit, Roger Robinson, Kendall Milton when he's healthy, Branson Robinson when he's healthy, whoever gets it, they're probably going to go for 5 to 6 yards every carry and then can bounce one out for 40, 50 yards every now and again.
Especially with the schedule Georgia's playing this year. I mean,
I didn't want to hit on the schedule.
So,
I mean, yeah, we were supposed to play Oklahoma the very first game. That got canceled.
That's not y'all's fault.
So. Yeah, that's not our fault. And I mean, the whole schedule isn't our fault. Like Kirby schedules these out of conference games. This one got canceled. The rest of it is on the East being bad. And we play Auburn every year. So do y'all.
And Auburn's bad.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's not really like Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan fans saying our schedule's bad. It's the SEC East teams. It's Florida fans. It's Tennessee fans. It's South Carolina fans saying how bad our schedule is because we can't play ourselves. like all these East teams, they have
So
to play
now you know how Alabama fans
Georgia can't
felt.
play Georgia.
That's how
Well, no,
Alabama has always been.
Alabama's always had like a decent
so,
schedule because the West in the past has been better than the East.
Right.
Outside of the last few years, I think it'll return to that this year. But we can't help that Florida might not even make a bowl game. We can't help that South Carolina might go 7-5. Tennessee's finally turning it around. And Auburn, we'll get into the SEC tiers list, but they're at the very bottom for me.
Ooh,
but
wow.
So anyway, I hate how people hate on the schedules. We can't really help that. Anyway, so one of the areas you mentioned it as well, but we had some wide receiver drops in our scrimmage.
Yeah.
It's more of a concern for me because I know y'all are kind of in the same spot, but we are not very experienced back there at receiver. I know we got Dom Lovett, who's going to be a stud from Missouri. He's going to be good. We have Lad McConkey, who might be a top round 3 pick. I want to doubt it. And he's my favorite player. I love Lad. He's a great guy too. He's such a great guy.
He's just Slade Bolden, but way better.
Yeah, no, he's Hunter Renfrow, but better. But we got Ra Thomas, who has some experience. Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint has some experience. Arian Smith has some experience, but none of them are certified dudes outside of Lovett and McConkey. Yeah. And so what I've heard is in the scrimmage, Lad went off, had no trouble getting open against our elite defense. And also Arian Smith shined, although if any Georgia fans saw what Georgia football posted, the video of the scrimmage, and Kirby mentioned it in his presser, how I think it was the twos that were running. And so it was probably Brock Vandegrift had an interception. But what happened is he threw it to Arian Smith's head and it went through his hands, landing in a linebacker's hands. So, like you mentioned, that's just how some interceptions happen. So,
well, that's one of the areas. Going back to what you were talking about with the running back room, I think that's not. I actually don't think it's that big of a concern. I'm kind of in the same boat with you. I think really whoever you guys give the ball to, it'll be fine, especially early on. And these guys that are injured right now are a little banged up, like Kendall Milton. Are you really going to need him early on in the year? The first game you really get to that I would say is in the slight concerning is week 4 against South Carolina, and you have that game at home.
Week three.
And it just from looking at y'all's team and roster, I think Georgia's going to be a more passing team this year.
Oh yeah,
than they are going to be a running team. It's opposite for Alabama. If we had y'all's running back situation on our team, that would be very, very worrisome. But we don't, and thankfully y'all are a passing team who can rely on the Brock Bowers, the Oscar Phelps. And you have I know you're probably about to get into that tight end room, but you'll have the luxury
right into it
of those guys right there.
You're leading right into it. So, like you said, Brock
how'd you
Bowers,
like that tease? That was a good little tease for our first episode. Hey,
that is the best tight end room in all of college football. And last year it was probably a top 5 room ever. And so this year, you're talking about Brock Bowers, Darnell Washington. You still had Oscar Delp back there last year. You had Arik Gilbert, who obviously very sad for him, didn't turn things out. Maybe he can at Nebraska this year. But anyway, in my mind, there's no one that comes even close to Brock Bowers, best player in college football, aside from positional value. Obviously Caleb Williams, you could throw Drake May in there, but Brock Bowers and Marvin Harrison. But you cannot find a tight end even close to how talented he is in the past 5 years.
The gap is really large. I would say that, in my opinion, the second best tight end in college football is Jatavian Sanders, the tight end at Texas. And the gap between Brock Bowers and him is about as wide as the Grand Canyon. So,
so Oscar Delp, he's been making some strides. So he was actually last year, I believe he was sitting about 230 pounds, and he was known as a pass catching tight end, kind of like Brock, just not as talented as Brock, because Brock is one of one, but he's gained 20 pounds of muscle over this past year in summer. So he's now sitting about 250 pounds. And so we're still going to run 12 personnel. He's going to be that end of line blocker, and he's not going to be Darnell. Obviously Darnell is again one of one. Yeah. No, I know. Yeah. But he's going to have more receiving upside than Darnell did, and he can still put people in the dirt. And also he had a 50-yard touchdown this past scrimmage. And like we said, who knows if those are those are scripted, but I mean, it's looking like he can make some noise.
Yeah.
And so then my final concern is our outside linebacker inexperience, because I mean, we have some dudes back there. We have Chaz Chambliss, who's the only one with experience. And we have 5-stars like Damon Wilson and Marvin Jones Jr. and Jalen Walker, who can also play inside. They're all going to get some looks. And also Sam Mpemba. And we have some other guys who've been there for 2 to 3 years, but I just don't know. I mean, you can throw Mykel Williams in there, but who's going to be a first-round pick here in a few years? He's going to be
Columbus
top
guy,
5 pick.
another Columbus guy.
Yeah, he also, Columbus guy. He went to Hardaway.
Yeah.
I
imagine Mykel Williams at Hardaway going up against Elijah Pritchett and Carver at Carver High School in Columbus. Man, I bet you that was a really good ticket. That's something.
Iron sharpens iron. Good on good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, on third down, I have no concerns about rushing the passer. But it's on first down if they're throwing the ball. On second down, if they're throwing the ball when we're not prepared for a pass, are people going to be able to get home to the quarterback? And so, I mean, like I said, 5-stars in Marvin Jones Jr. and Damon Wilson, both of them are studs, and they can get past tackles. But I just don't know how it's going to look. Although I did hear D-line won the day in our scrimmage, even though we have an elite offensive line.
It's all think about who your head coach is. It's Kirby Smart. He's probably the best defensive coordinator that I've ever seen in my lifetime. He's your head coach, and you got Glenn Schumann. They're going to find ways to attack.
And Will Muschamp. Don't forget about him.
Will Muschamp. They're going to find ways to attack the passer just besides outside linebacker, whether that's bringing a safety down, rushing a corner, adding more interior pass rush, getting a middle linebacker. It doesn't have to fall all on the outside linebacker's shoulders like we all think it may.
No, I mean,
those are technically your best pass rushers, guys that's job is to pass rush. But if you need some help at that position, they're going to scheme up different ways to go.
That's very fair. I don't know if you remember.
I wouldn't be too concerned if I were you. I think you guys are going to be just fine.
I mean, it's hard to find concerns on this team because I'm not saying we're going to win. We're not going to three-peat, but we're going to be good this year, and we have a chance to do so. But I don't know if you remember the Tennessee game last year where it was raining, pouring down rain. Our leading sacker that game was Javon Bullard, who is now transferring over to safety, but he was our star position player last year.
Yeah.
There was one drive where 3 straight plays he rushed the passer, and 2 of them he got home. And so, I mean, like you said, we can all 3 of those guys, Will Muschamp, Glenn Schumann, of course, Kirby Smart, 3 are the greatest defensive minds in the game right now and in the past 10 years. So I'm not really worried about getting home to the quarterback. It's just with our inexperience at the opposite side of Kamari Laster at cornerback, and maybe Tyke Smith a little bit at star because he hasn't played in a meaningful game in 2 years. So are they going to be able to get home before those receivers can get open? But we'll see. Let me give you the last little bit of a nug here.
Okay.
I'll give you 2 names. I mentioned one earlier, Cash Jones and Mekhi Muse. Both of them walk-ons who I'm not sure if they were preferred. I'm pretty sure they were both preferred, but both walk-ons who are going to make some noise. They're going to get first-team reps this year. You're going to look on the field. There's going to be a short, probably 5'6", 5'7" wide receiver, number 87. You're going to be like, who is that? And he's also probably going to start punt returning for us. Mekhi Muse, dude is shifty. And he's not the most talented. He's not going to be our number 1 wide receiver, but maybe it's 3rd and 3 against South Carolina, and we need someone to get open on a quick slant. He might be out there, and he might be the guy, especially if Dominic Lovett gets hurt. So, And then number 32, Cash Jones. Outside of Arian Smith, he might be the fastest guy on our team. Stud. And so, I mean, with the injuries to running back, we've had Kendall Milton and Branson Robinson go down. Cash Jones has been getting the number 2 reps so far. And in our spring game, we also had Dejon Edwards hurt. So Cash Jones was the number 1 running back in the spring last year for our game. So, I mean, enough about Georgia and Alabama. Let's switch it to some.
I just didn't realize. I got one more thing to say before we move on. I didn't realize this really fully until we were just talking there. You go to the University of Georgia. I go to the University of Alabama.
Go Dogs.
the two most premier programs we've got covered on this show, people. So sorry to the listeners who are, Missouri fans or Auburn fans or Tennessee fans. The way we talk, we've had this success. So I know it's a little bit different for you guys, but just kind of bear with us when we talk about our teams because
Hey, but maybe when we actually get viewers, because I don't imagine there's more than like 2 people watching on this one.
Yeah.
Maybe when we
this is
get
for the
some viewers.
people. This is when we get viewers for the people that come back and say, "I want to see what the first show was like." And we'll probably go back and watch and see. This was a terrible show to how we're going to be, 20.
It's a learning curve.
Exactly. Yeah. And
speaking of Missouri, though, did you see Williams Winery, number 1?
Did you see that reaction that their coaching staff had to landing him?
Hey, Drink's a good coach.
Those guys that commit to not the top premier schools like a Georgia or Alabama, it's big for those coaching staffs when they land somebody like that.
Hey, they're about to have a similar reaction. Ryan Wingo. I don't know when he's going to commit.
Another in-state guy. Another in-state.
I think he's going to go to Missouri.
Yeah, I think both of those 2 5-stars that are from the state of Missouri will end up there. Yeah. Let's go ahead and transition off Alabama and Georgia, like you were saying. We're going to pick conference winners and runner-ups, which leading into our sleeper teams for college football. We're going to give 2 teams apiece that are sleeper teams. But first, we'll kind of start off with the conference winners and runner-ups. And when we say runner-ups, just for clarification, it's not who's second best record in the conference. It's whoever's lost to the team in the conference championship. And so obviously with the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, all 3 of these conferences still have divisions. I think this is the last year in Big Ten and SEC that there will be divisions. I think the ACC is going to keep them. But we'll start right there with the Big Ten. Jake, who do you have winning the Big Ten this year?
I got Michigan. Michigan's going to be good.
Yeah,
elite O-line, elite running backs. I think J.J. McCarthy's going to be good. Elite defense. My only questions are receivers and really how good J.J. McCarthy can be. I mean, but not the hardest schedule in the world. They do. I mean, they're in the East, right? Or is that the West?
Yeah, they're so the way that the Big Ten is, they have the East, which is the power conference that has Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State in it.
So you got the East. You got the East, not the hardest schedule in the world, but they have to play both Penn State and Ohio State, who obviously people know about Ohio State, but Penn State's going to be really good this year. Penn State is going to be nice.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, my sleeper team, one of my sleeper teams is in the Big Ten East. I'm not going to name that team yet, but they are a Big Ten East team. So I also have Michigan winning the Big Ten this year. Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, the best running back duo in college football, I think. Best offensive line, in my opinion, is the Michigan offense. Yeah. But go ahead.
No, I was about to say, let me give you my runner-up, who's one of my sleeper teams.
Okay.
Let me guess the team, because it's a sleeper.
Was this team good last year?
No.
Do they have a new head coach?
Yeah.
Wisconsin.
Nope.
Wow.
Wisconsin's ranked in the preseason top 25.
Nebraska.
Yep.
Okay.
It's Nebraska. And again, Nebraska has a pretty hard schedule. Nebraska has a hard schedule.
Yeah.
But
Big Ten's no joke, man. They're getting better.
No, I know. I think they're really good. They're going to be really good. You mentioned him earlier, Jeff Sims. He's there. Arik Gilbert. He's there. Yeah. They got some receivers. I know they got a guy from this past recruiting class. I can't remember his name, but he was supposed to go to like Ohio State, I'm pretty sure, as a receiver. And so whoever he is, I'm pretty sure he was top 70 recruit in the nation. They've got some guys, and I mean, like I said, they got transfers too. They took one of our they're kind of the UGA of the North. They took 3 UGA transfers this past year, and Arik Gilbert, who's going to start at tight end in my mind, Jacob Hood, who might start at offensive tackle, and then also MJ Sherman, who's going to be I think he's going to be a beast back there on defense. So,
and we always know Matt Rule, when he's at a college program, he's going to turn that program around and quick, especially if a program has the resources available. And we know that Nebraska has one of the best fan bases in college football. I mean, I think they've been selling out games consecutively every game for like 11 seasons in a row, which is insane because at how bad they've been the last.
They got loyal fans.
Maybe the best fan base in college football in just terms of support. Not in terms of NIL money like that or anything like that, just support Nebraska. So, yeah, I don't mind that sleeper pick at all. However, my runner-up is going to be Wisconsin under first-year coach Luke Fickell. I think they've got all the pieces in place. Luke Fickell's got an opportunity that not many new head coaches have. I mean, he's coming into a team that was already a really good team. I think they won 8 games last year. So they already had pieces in place, and then he's going to bring his philosophy, a few of his players over. Yeah, I think Wisconsin. They have Tanner Mordecai as their quarterback. I think he's a 6-year guy. Worked at Oklahoma, transferred to SMU, made some noise there. So yeah, I think Wisconsin's just going to pick it up, and I think they're going to have a really good season. Obviously, not probably the 4th best team in the Big Ten, but since they play in the West, a little bit easier of a schedule, gives them a better shot to get to the championship.
It's gonna be competitive between, in my mind, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Nebraska. So we'll see which way it lands. I can see any 3 of those teams winning the West. Even maybe throw in Purdue, because Purdue is always just solid. I mean, they
always come up with a big upset. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they just beat Ohio State outright this year. I mean, they do something like that every season. But
so we gave the Big Ten their flowers. We let them go first, but let's talk about the best conference.
Hold up. I want to go ahead and do my sleeper team, my Big Ten sleeper team.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to go ahead and do it since we're here already.
So
the university. Go ahead. You can guess.
I was going to say, let me tell you, it can't be Penn State.
It's not Penn State.
Okay, good.
It's a Big Ten East team.
Is it like Minnesota?
The University of Maryland Fighting Terrapins is my sleeper team, and one of my biggest sleeper team heading into this season.
I think that's a big sleeper.
It is a big sleeper. Head coach, former Alabama offensive coordinator Mike Locksley from 2018. Quarterback Talia Tagovailoa, the brother of Tua. I think he's an underrated quarterback. If he was on let me put it this way: if he was on Alabama, he'd be the starting quarterback this year. He was once upon a time at Alabama, transferred.
Yeah, but how much is that really saying?
I understand, but at the same time, they've got sneaky good athletes around him on offense. They've got some good running backs, a solid O-line. I think this year's the year that they pull off an upset of a big team out of the Big Ten East, whether that's Ohio State. I think they get Penn State at home. I wouldn't be surprised if they beat Penn State at home. I think they beat one of the 3, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. I think they knock off one this year. So they're my sleeper team. I actually have them at above 8 wins. So for the sports bettors out there, I would go ahead and hammer that. I think it's 7.5. I'd hammer the over on that. So that's enough with the Big Ten. Enough with the Big Ten. We'll head on to the Big 12. And every year, I always felt insiders and sports bettors always pick Texas to win the conference. Obviously, most money, probably the best players, but it really never happens. Kansas State won it last year, and TCU made the playoff, and didn't even win the conference as an 11-1 or as a 12-1 team. But I'm going to do it. I'm just going to say Texas is going to win the conference this year. To me, I think this is the year they finally put it all together under Coach Steve Sarkisian. In my opinion, the best quarterback room in the country with Quinn Ewers, Malik Murphy. I even heard Arch Manning took a step up in that depth chart and went from 3rd to 2nd, passing Malik.
I heard that too.
And they have tons of talent. I mean, you can't talk enough about Xavier Worthy, bringing former Georgia receiver A.D. Mitchell in, Isaiah Nair,
Jonte Cook, freshman.
Jonte Cook. What's the guy's name? Brax. I think is like he's some freshman running back they've got who's supposed to be.
Cedric Baxter.
Yeah. I watched his tape the other day. He's going to be insane. So yeah, definitely as an Alabama fan, definitely worried about that week 2 game.
I told you last year that I thought Bama was catching Texas at the perfect time last year because Texas was getting hyped up last year. I can't remember what were they ranked when y'all played them. 10?
They were up there, and they're going to be up there this year. They're starting off this year.
But they were highly ranked last year, but they didn't have the guys to do it last year. They had Quinn Ewers, and that was about it. And of course,
Worthy. They had an injured Isaiah Nair. He didn't play.
They had Xavier Worthy, but he was still largely unproven. And they had, of course, Bijan Robinson. Their defense was nothing last year. So anyway, I told you I thought they caught them at the perfect time because they were hyped up, but also Bama was supposed to have the best team last year. It ended up not happening. But anyway, this year I think it's a completely different circumstance where caught them at the worst time, where Bama, they're hyped up. In my mind, they're not as great as what people think.
I wouldn't say we're hyped up. I just think
preseason ranked number 4. That is hyped up.
But for Bama standards, no. For Bama standards, we're not hyped up, in my opinion. But
Well, yeah, you're comparing it to are we predicted to win the national championship or are we not? Y'all are third in odds to win the national championship. Yeah, I'm pretty sure third. It might be fourth.
we're
Anyway,
tied for second, I think, right now with Ohio State. So yeah,
you just helped Mike.
I understand, but
anyway,
for Bama standards, no. But yes, they are catching us at the perfect time where
yeah,
quarterbacks,
yeah.
yeah. But defense for me this year is a little average for them. To me, where I think they are going to improve greatly is that offensive line. Kelvin Banks, they're starting. I think he's playing left tackle this year. As a freshman, was a starter, very talented kid. He's only going to get better. And then obviously losing Bijan and Roshan is a big deal for them. But I think
But I mean, like
the new kids are going to step in and play perfectly fine, especially with the line.
Cedric Baxter, he's a stud.
He is.
So,
He is definitely
not as good as Bijan, of course, but he has a chance to be better eventually, and I think he's going to be better than Roshan, of course. But no slouches. I mean, I also have Texas winning, but my team I have running up, and it's the same thing every single year. I have Oklahoma. So I mean, every year it's predicted to be Texas, Oklahoma, and like you said, most years it doesn't happen. This year, I think it's the year to happen. Dylan Gabriel's coming back. He's going to be really good. And in my mind, it's not so much that Oklahoma is going to be elite. I think they're going to be good, but Big 12, who else do they have? I know they have some average teams, and I mean TCU. I don't know if they're how big of a step back they're going to take, but they're still going to be decent. Kansas State's going to be decent. Baylor might be decent. Oklahoma State might be, but like, who else does the Big 12 have?
Well, here's my surprise runner-up, and also my second sleeper team, my final sleeper team. The University of Central Florida Knights.
Oh, I forgot
they're my runner-up in the Big 12.
I forgot they're in the Big 12. Team. That is surprising.
John Rice Plumlee, Javon Baker, former Alabama receiver, Kobe Hudson, former classmate of mine, or of ours.
Classmate of
ours. Classmate, former Auburn Tiger. He learned his lesson when he hit in the Iron Bowl. We ended up coming back and winning that game. He learned his lesson, transferred over to UCF. But I think the stars are aligning for Gus Malzahn over there in that. The way he runs an offense. He's an offensive whisperer, trick play genius. They're actually going to have a better defense than most people think they will. I think they'll challenge in their first season in the Big 12. I think they'll really challenge for that. That they just don't have the talent to go up against like Texas and Oklahoma.
As soon as they swapped over to the Big 12, their recruiting's picking up too. They picked up Kyler Fox, a really good tight end from Grayson. One of his teammates from Grayson. I believe a top 120 defensive lineman potentially. And then they also just flipped one of our safeties. We were supposed to have 3 safeties. Now we have 0. But they flipped our safety, Jalen Hayward, who's a top 80 player. I believe he's the number 5 ranked safety, according to On3 Industry. Their recruiting's picking up too. So and I don't hate the pick at all. I don't hate it.
And I think a lot of people thought that this would happen when they joined a Power 5 conference. I mean, considering where they are, I mean, they're in Orlando, Florida. It's a pretty decent sized market in Florida. They're one of the biggest schools in the country. I think they're one of the top 5 biggest schools in the country. So they've got the revenue for it. They really just needed to join a conference. And now that they've done that, I think UCF will be a team to watch in the future. And then now I think to the most interesting, we'll talk more about this later, most interesting conference in football this upcoming year, the Pac-12.
Pac-12, it's interesting.
Yeah, I've got, and I think I'm going to go a little different than most people would think. Most people, USC's coming back with Caleb Williams. They've got the Heisman runner-up or the Heisman winner, probably the best quarterback in college football this upcoming year. Lincoln Riley, probably one of the better offenses. But I'm going a completely different way for my winner and runner-up in the conference this year.
I might be clapping for you. Who's your winner?
My winner is the Washington Huskies. Michael Penix Jr., I believe in him. The big
both their wide receiver studs too. Oh my gosh.
The big lefty's gonna be slinging it this year. They run a really good spread offense. The defense isn't bad either. They've got all this, like you were saying, they've got a couple really good receivers that can really stretch the field on that offense. Solid O-line to protect him. I mean, Penix is probably going to throw 40, 50 passes a game. And
I would not.
They're going to outscore everybody they play.
If you tell me at the end of the year that he has 5,000 passing yards, I honestly wouldn't be that surprised. I mean, yeah, that's a lot, but honestly would not be that surprised. And it's kind of the same that you mentioned with UCF, where stars are aligning. I believe stars are aligning for
I do
Washington.
too. I do too. And
They're not exactly a sleeper team. It's whereas if you think Penn State's going to be elite, if you think FSU is going to be elite, or Washington, they're not sleeper teams because the country thinks they're going to be good. But I think they might make the playoff this year. So because they're my team winning
that's
too.
where it gets a little difficult for me, because to me the Pac-12, I feel like we talked about this the other day on the phone. I think they're going to eat themselves alive. I truly think
We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah. Well, and I'll get back to that in a little bit, but I would assume you have Washington winning the Pac-12 as well, or do you have somebody else?
I got Washington winning, USC running up with it. I know you said
Okay.
you're going to go a different direction, but
Yeah.
Caleb Williams is just too good. Their defense, Bear Alexander said they're the same physicality as Georgia's defense. Obviously, he's going to say that. So no hate to him for saying that, but we all know that's not true. But I do believe they're going to take a step up this year. They have a couple of potential All-Americans on that defense. But I mean, those receivers are just too good. Dorian Singer, Mario Williams, Brendan Rice at tight end. I believe it's tight end, or is he a receiver?
I think Rice I think he's a combo guy. I think he can do both.
Yeah. So anyway, they've got receivers. They got Caleb Williams. They got Marshawn Lloyd, a running back transfer from South Carolina, who's no slouch.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. Yeah,
especially going up against Pac-12 defenses, they're going to score a lot of points.
I hate to say this, but yeah, my runner-up is going to be Oregon with Bo Nix, the dark horse Heisman candidate. I think him and Penix are both pretty dark horse Heisman candidates this year. They're not going to be your frontline guys like Caleb Williams or Drake May or anything like that, but I definitely think both of them have a really good shot. And hey, when Bo Nix is having fun throwing the ball around, you never know. So I do think it'll come down to Oregon and Washington. I think that Oregon defense will be much better this year now that Coach Dan Lanning's got his guys in there that he wants.
Yeah. So let's keep it within the Pac-12 real quick. My sleeper team, and I saw they were ranked 18 on the preseason top 25, which I'm surprised. I thought they went ranked. Oregon State.
Oh, okay.
They were a team that was really good last year. I don't have them winning, but I can definitely see them winning the Pac-12. I believe they went. What'd they go last year? 9-3, 10-3, 10-3 with a win over Florida in the bowl game. And obviously Florida wasn't elite last year, but they didn't lose a lot of guys. They're going to have an elite offense this year. Defense going to be decent, but they also went and got DJ Ungalaleyu, however you pronounce it.
DJU, just say DJU.
DJU. They got him, so they're going to make some noise this year. I'm excited to watch.
DJ, I actually like that pick because I can see DJ being a lot better than what people say he was at Clemson. Yeah. I don't think that Clemson offense really fit who he is as a player. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely agree. I could definitely see that.
And you mentioned,
let's take it to the SEC.
Let's hold it for the ACC so we can just transition into
the ACC. I got you.
Because you just mentioned them, Clemson. I hate to say it, but I have them winning. I have them winning the ACC. It was back and forth between them and FSU for me, but I just don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of question marks around FSU, and obviously they have another elite offense in Jordan Travis with Keon Coleman from Michigan State, and also Johnny, what's his name? Johnny Wilson. Who's they're gonna have an elite passing. They're gonna have an elite passing offense with a pretty good defense in my mind.
Jared Verse is the best edge rusher in college football, and he's gonna make noise this year with them. So yeah, he probably could have gone in the draft last year and been a first round pick.
Yeah, no, he would have been. But to me, Clemson defense is going to be really good. Cade Klubnik might be a Heisman finalist this year. Receiver is going to be a big issue for him, but also Will Shipley, one of the best running backs in the nation. So just too much in my mind.
Yeah, and I got to go with the proven commodity. I haven't seen FSU do it yet, so I still have to go with someone who if I had to bet money on this, someone I'd feel confidently betting my money on, and that's Clemson. So everything you said, I think you touched on it perfectly. Always have a really good defensive line. Got a freshman actually from Birmingham, beat out Alabama and Georgia for him, Peter Woods.
Yep,
5-star freshman defensive line. He's
good.
He's probably going to be a big contributor for them as a freshman. And then my runner-up is Pitt, the University of Pittsburgh. I actually have them big supporter of them. I think Keaton Slovis, I think he's back there this year. USC guy is going to just be just as good as they were last year. I think they were an 8-9 win team last year. Don't really see that changing. And that side of the conference is not a very good side of the conference anyway.
Not very good.
Yeah, I mean, Pat Narduzzi and Pitt, I think they kind of kind of stick where they were last year and challenge for that ACC title.
Mine might not be the biggest surprise, but I got UNC running up with it. Drake May is just going to be elite. I mean, I don't want to say him and Caleb Williams are 1A and 1B, but it's close to that level. Caleb Williams, he's just too good, but Drake May is nice. Drake May is nice, and he can put the team on his back. So I think they're not my sleeper team because I think they might go 9-3, something like that. But I think they might go undefeated against the West. Is that the West?
They're the coastal so they're called the Atlantic and Coastal divisions. That's what they're weird.
They need to abandon this.
Yeah, they do. But my problem with North Carolina is their defense. Their defense is atrocious, and
they have good linebackers. They do. And then defensive coordinator Gene Chizik. I mean, come on now, really.
So I just don't. I think Pitt's a more quality team than North Carolina. I get Drake May and all that. I just think Pitt. If you ran it today, I think Pitt would be more physical than them and just So we'll go to the SEC.
Sure.
I think I know how this is going to go for both of us. We won't argue too much about it. We'll get into it in later shows throughout the year. Yeah. Can I go ahead and guess? I'm gonna go ahead and guess your SEC.
And I'm gonna guess yours. Yeah.
I think we already know where this is going. My SEC is the Alabama Crimson Tide. I think the Stars.
You think you're gonna beat us in the?
I do. I think the Stars are aligning for the Crimson Tide this year. Obviously, my runner-up is the University of Georgia. The only team I think that I really contend with them in the East this year is Tennessee. I think that's probably that Georgia-Tennessee game at Neyland Stadium is the biggest game.
I'm excited for it. It's gonna be fun.
SEC this year. It's gonna be a great game. I won't spoil my Heisman winner, but or my Heisman prediction, but I think he is in the SEC East this year. I
don't like that.
It's gonna be a tough game for Georgia to go into Neyland Stadium. I mean, obviously as a Bama fan, and now that Tennessee's good, I know how tough of a game it is to win on the road, especially at Neyland. It's going to take a big effort from the Bulldogs, but I think they pull it off. I think they play Alabama for the SEC title and they lose. So I think it's Alabama, Georgia in the SEC title, another familiar sight. But
what am I going to go with?
I think you're going to go with Georgia as the winner, obviously.
Yeah, but that's
the runner-up. And the runner-up, I think you're going to go with the Tigers of Louisiana State.
You are correct. LSU. They had a worse team last year than they do this year. They're a lot more experienced. They're going to be good. They might have the best receivers in the SEC. They might have the best QB in the SEC. They got elite defensive players in Mason Smith and also, of course, Harold Perkins. I mean, they got some drama going on with Denver Harris. I think he was just kicked off. I think there's a presser tomorrow to discuss that. But either way, they're going to be good. And of course, it's probably going to come down to between LSU and Bama in that game, but I think LSU is going to win it. I think they're going to be good this year.
So it's tough for me because LSU's never beat Alabama back to back under Nick Saban, and if they were to have beat us last year in Bryant-Denny and we were going into Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge, I would be more keen to say, okay, this is probably going to happen. But they're playing us in Bryant-Denny this year. They beat us last year. Former Nick Saban won a national championship over there. I just don't see it happening. I think it's going to be a great game, good close game, but I think Alabama comes out on top. I think that's obviously your game. For the West, I think your game to see who the West champion is Bama, LSU. Then the East is Georgia, Tennessee. So I think that's kind of how it's going to run this year, and that's how it'll be for the next few years. Those four teams kind of
it's going to be the top. It's going to be fun to watch. Let's lead that into our tiers. Let's kind of try to keep this segment not too long, but how many tiers do you have?
I actually have 6 tiers.
Sick.
I have 6 tiers. Okay, but my 6th tier is called the Vandy tier. So,
okay. Right.
They're kind of in there. They're kind of in a ballpark of their own. But let's start bottom and go up.
All right.
We all know my 6th tier is Vandy. My 5th tier, and this is for 2023. This isn't just in terms of where the program is. This is for the 2023 season. My 5th tier is the Florida Gators and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. That's my 5th tier.
Okay. I kind of made mine more broad. I really only have 4 tiers. my fourth tier, you'll see after I speak about this one, you'll see. But my fifth tier is Auburn. Auburn's going to be bad. I mean, they might make some noise. They could against Bama, but they're going to be bad. I got Auburn, Florida, Mississippi State, Missouri, and Vandy. Although Missouri, they're on the edge where they could go up, they could stay down. They played Georgia really hard last year. They played really well last year, and they got a good defense. Brady Cook's going to be good, but I mean, my fourth tier. So I just named that tier as bad. This upcoming tier, I just said I don't know. It's Texas A&M. Texas A&M, I want to put them in bad because they went 4-8 last year, but their roster is just too good. But also, I don't think they're in the next tier that could make some noise. So they're just right in the middle. I don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah, my fourth tier is I've got 4 teams in my fourth tier. I've got Kentucky, Arkansas, Auburn, and Missouri. I think all 4 of those teams could be 6-win teams or higher. I think Auburn's actually going to be a little bit better than people think. I think they're going to be about 7-5.
They could.
Arkansas, returning KJ Jefferson, that's always big that they've got some continuity on the offensive side, but they're really going to struggle defensively. They're not going to be a good defensive team this year, so they're really going to have to put up some points. Obviously, Kentucky grabbing Devin Leary was huge for them. I think he's going to be a better quarterback than Will Levis was in college. So,
I agree.
And tier 3 for me is the South Carolina Gamecocks, the Fighting Shane Beamers, and then Ole Miss, tier 3.
Okay. See, my tier 3, you got 2 of those same teams, both South Carolina and Ole Miss, but I also threw Arkansas and Kentucky into that for me.
Okay.
So
you're not high on the Texas A&M Aggies, then I take it. You're not very high on them.
No,
wow.
I've never.
Wow.
Dude, my hot take last year was that they were going to go 6-6, and they did worse than that. So, I mean, like I said, I don't know where to put them because I think they could go 8-4. I think they could go 5-7. I think they could even potentially go like 9-3. But in my mind, they're probably going to go like 7-5. They're eh.
I'm intrigued by the Bobby Petrino, Jimbo Fisher marriage that's kind of going on there.
So am I.
And I tend to think that it's actually going to work out for them. I think they've got tons of talent in that receiver room. Connor Wegman's a great quarterback.
We'll see.
I think A&M could be a little scary little team this year in the SEC, make some noise, but I think they could beat Alabama this year. I actually haven't beaten Alabama this year. So
see, that's my tier. It's could make some noise. So I got Ole Miss, South Carolina, who can both upset potentially us in Georgia, but I also have Arkansas and Kentucky, where I don't think Kentucky's going to upset us, but they could upset someone else. And same with Arkansas. Arkansas could. Do y'all have them at home? Y'all go on the road.
Yeah, we have Arkansas at home. Okay. Yeah, we have Arkansas.
I mean, Arkansas, they could be LSU, so I don't know which way it's going to go, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, for my tier 2, which is I think teams that are just right outside. I wouldn't say conference. I would say conference contenders this year, but probably not. Tennessee, Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is a 9-3 team this year.
There's no way you put A&M on the same tier as Tennessee.
I actually do think Tennessee and A&M just for 2023. Talent wise, A&M is there, and I really like. And all they have to do, they're already going to have a top 25 defense in college football. They're there with that. They just got I think they've got the talent for it. And I think it's time that all these boosters at A&M, these cultists, put their money in. They finally get something out of it. So
you could be right. They could want to be third in the conference or something like that. But in my mind, there's just no way they go from 4-8, the worst team in the SEC last year, to being that good. I mean, I know this is just on
TCU did it.
So my tier 2 were contenders, and so I have Bama, LSU, and Tennessee in that. All teams that could win the SEC have a shot to win the SEC. But I mean, my tier 1, it's elite. It's just Georgia. Georgia's on a tier of their own right now in the SEC, really in the whole nation. I mean, I know it's for 2023, but you can't just exclude the past 2 years where they've been the best team in all of college football both years. So
I totally get separating Georgia from those, and I honestly maybe I could have done that. I was just thinking more of who do I think are going to be playing for the SEC title, and I think that really there's only 3 teams that could do that this year, and it's Alabama, Georgia, and LSU. They kind of round out as my favorites. I listed my tier 1 title as favorite. So I think those are the three teams that would be most likely to win the SEC title. Obviously, Tennessee beats Georgia. I think they're very capable of winning the SEC title.
They are.
I just think the West is a little too stacked this year for it to be anyone else besides Alabama and LSU. Although I do think A&M and Ole Miss will make some noise. I think they'll beat maybe a team that they shouldn't beat. I think Ole Miss is going to keep it close with Georgia at home. I really do think that's going to be
they run the ball. They limit possessions. I think it does really help that we have them at home. So ultimately, I think we're going to win by probably about 14, but it could get.
Sean Judkins to me is the best running back in college football. I even have him above Blake Corum. I think he's the best in college football.
Yeah, like I said about Texas Bama, I think we're going to stack the box, have 7 in there every time. Their O-line isn't that great. No, Judkins is really good. So I think we're going to stack the box, and Judkins is going to go for an average of 3.2 yards a carry.
But hey, that's not a bad yards per carry against Georgia. I think.
Oh, it's not. No,
if you told Kiffin that right now, Kiffin would take it any day of the week.
Oh, I think he would. It's probably top 5 in the past 3 years against Georgia.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap up the show really quickly here. Talk about why the Pac-12 is the most interesting conference in 2023. So, to me, from top to bottom, the quality of the Pac-12 this year is probably the best conference of anyone in the country. Probably the best their conference has been in a long time. I have 2 teams going double-digit wins, Washington and Oregon, and I have seven other teams on top of that with winning records in the conference. Yeah. Oregon State, you talked about them as a sleeper team. I'm not particularly as high on them as you are, I don't think, just because I think there's so many other talented teams in the conference. Yeah. But I think they're going to be a team that wins 6-7 games, and they're probably going to be, the 9th team in the conference, in my opinion.
That's why they're my sleeper, because they're not supposed to have a lot of wins, but they're a good team.
Yeah,
if they finish 7th in the Pac-12, they might be able to beat every single 7th team in the rest of the country, even SEC potentially.
Yeah, let's go through this. Washington, great team. Oregon, great team. USC, great team. Utah, they've won the conference 2 years in a row. Yeah. I think they're going to be right back up there. Washington State, great team. UCLA, they lost a quarterback, but they got Dante Moore coming in. Oregon State, obviously, they've been there, done that. But here's my team that I'm really looking forward to watching this year. University of Colorado.
Oh, yeah, no.
Prime time coming in there. A lot of people not giving Prime time the respect that he deserves. And I think
they got a hard schedule, though.
They have a tough schedule, but let me tell you how glad, and I think you would also echo the sentiment. Let me tell you how glad I am that Prime Time is not the head coach at Auburn University. I am so glad that the Auburn donors are dumb enough not to offer him the job, because maybe they wouldn't beat Alabama or Georgia every year, but he would steal at least 3 to 4 recruits, probably from each school, that would end up hurting Alabama and Georgia in the long run. Maybe not against Auburn, but maybe in like a national championship run or a playoff run. I'm not trying to say Hugh Freeze is a bad coach at all. I'm not. I think Hugh Freeze is a great coach. I think he'll actually be at Auburn for a long time.
Deion is just a completely different coach.
Deion is the best recruiter in college football.
Without it. And the thing is, he doesn't even have to recruit. He uses his name. He uses who he is.
Exactly.
Whereas Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, they use who they are. They use their pedigree. But these guys weren't elite players in the NFL. Like Deion, just his name carries so much. So as soon as you see, Deion, the coach of Colorado, is calling me, they want to answer the phone. And then he's a great salesman too. So
I think if you take Deion Sanders and sit him down in a living room with a kid and his parents, and Deion kind of lays out, I don't think there's any coach in college football, including Nick Saban or Kirby Smart, that can really compete with what Deion Sanders is selling. The way he's always talking about, and yes, Saban and Kirby Smart want to make their players better people, but if you watch the social media that Colorado also has is outstanding. I don't know, they're always popping up on my feed about how like their conversations and team meetings and how respectful Deion Sanders makes them. Yes, very controversial how he on his hiring day kind of went in there and said, I'm bringing Louis and I'm kind of already got quarterback taken care of. Kind of
I like it though. I like it.
I like the confidence, and he just seems like he's a great guy. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if it's more football related or are the cameras always going to be on Dion? Because he's always going to be doing something.
Yeah.
Just change
And so
that. So
I say if they go 5-7, that's an extremely successful year. So
I
like I
actually
said,
have them going 7-5. I mean, I think they're going to be a lot better than what people think.
if they go 7-5, that is amazing for them because they played the whole Pac-12, not the whole Pac-12, but pretty much all the good teams in it. But then throw that in with TCU and Nebraska as well. So
I would not be surprised to see Deion Sanders as an SEC head coach in the next 2-3 years. And when that day comes, there will be a lot of messed up pants in the SEC. There will be a lot of teams and coaches that are going to fear whoever he goes to. And I don't think it particularly matters where he goes. I'm just so glad he's not at Auburn because I think that would really hurt Alabama, especially hurt Georgia and Alabama more than any other team.
Yeah. But wrapping up just kind of why the Pac-12 is so competitive this year. I mean, you look in the past, there's only been 2 teams to make the college football playoff, and that was Oregon in 2015 and Washington in 2016.
Yeah.
But I mean, really the reason for that is they don't have a team go undefeated because they shoot themselves in the foot every year. Because especially last year where they're so good, like from top to bottom, they might have been the best conference depth wise from top to bottom last year. But they just shoot themselves in the foot, and someone
kind of
always
like the Big 12. Yeah, it's kind of like the Big 12 do it all the time.
Yeah, no, they would have had a team in the playoff last year if USC would have won that conference championship, but that didn't happen, and that's what happens every year. And I mean, I say Washington might make the playoff, but that's probably what's going to happen again too, since they're so good. Someone's going to beat Washington if they win the conference championship, and same with USC if they win. So it's hard for me to say that I think the winner of the Pac-12 is going to make the playoff just because of how competitive it is.
Yeah, and personally, I think the winner of the conference is going to have 2 losses. So I think Washington wins the conference, but I think they lose 2 games somewhere just because of how competitive it's going to be and how quality the top is going to be so much quality.
I think
they're going to have to wait till the 2024 season when there's a 12-team playoff for them to.
Yeah,
someone's going to get an automatic bid, and they may get another team in. But I mean, too bad for the Pac-12 because they're not even going to be a conference next year. So
I think
it'll be interesting. And the way that happened, honestly, the way that they just dissolved was wild. I have never seen a conference just dissolve in 2 days' time. I mean, it went from USC, UCLA joining the conference still, and then like 2 months of nothing to all of a sudden everyone trying to leave.
Everyone gone.
And it's crazy. Gone. And I still am so puzzled with Oregon State and Washington State, what they're going to do. No one really cares about Stanford or Cal. I could care less where they go. They could go to the Mountain West for all I care. But, Oregon State and Washington State are 2 like pretty good programs, I think. And obviously Oregon State, they're getting a lot better. Someone's got to pick them up, right? Whether that's the Big 12 or the Big 10. The Big 10's at 18 teams next year. If they get Oregon State and Washington State, that's 20. I think then is when you can start talking, and this is for another show, but I think then is where you can start talking about maybe the SEC gets leaped by the Big 10 as the best conference in college football, just because if they're going to have more teams and more quality.
We got to talk about that one next.
That could be a something we could talk about, but I don't think there's a playoff team there this year. Plenty of quality teams. But yeah, it'll be interesting to watch how that folds out this year. I don't typically stay up for Pac-12 after dark, but I think this year I might. So
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I'd call this show a success for our first one. It was fun.
It was fun. It's always good getting to see you and talk to one of my best friends about football. And we have differing opinions, and I love that. At Alabama, I obviously have friends I talk to, but we all kind of have the same opinion. Alabama's going to win the Natty, or this and this. We have different opinions. So
I appreciate you saying best friends. Earlier, you just said really good friends. I appreciate the clarification here. An hour and a half.
Sorry. Well, we all think we thank our 2 listeners or however many we have right now for listening. Hopefully, we'll get some more.
Hey, let's shoot for like 10.
Yeah. Hopefully, we'll get some more listeners.
I'll get my mom and dad to watch it.
Okay, yeah. And Shannon and Max will watch it as well, I'm sure. But so it'll be on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube. We'll post to podcast formats later. So we'll go ahead and start up a YouTube channel. Maybe even an Instagram and a TikTok. We'll get that going soon.
Already got the TikTok going. So
yeah. And if you guys want to promote us, we'd be great. Like and subscribe. Post on your Instagram story or Snapchat story. whatever. But this has been episode 1 of Just Saying. So
Yes, sir.
for myself and Jake, thanks again for watching, and we look forward to future shows.
Yes, sir. Go Dogs.
Roll Tide.